Ladies and gentlemen, direct from the Universal Broadcasting Network, located at the historic Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, and locations across the country and beyond. This is Showbiz Nation Live with Michael Roberts. Your weekly look behind the curtain featuring the latest news, reviews, interviews, and performances with the artists that shape the magnificent world of the performing arts. I'm your announcer, David Friend. And now, curtain up, put your hands together. Here is the host of Showbiz Nation Live, Michael Roberts.
Welcome back to Showbiz Nation, and my God, I can't believe it's been almost 10 years since I've interviewed my friend Anthony Rapp when he was in Chicago getting the amazing Trailblazer Award at Bailiwick Theater. But of course, you know him from Rent, he was the AD on Next to Normal. Actually, last time I talked to you, Anthony, you were doing Feeling Electric. You were doing...
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, my God, which became Next to Normal. And he is going to be at the Oriental Theater February 23rd through March 6th, reprising his Broadway role as Lucas in the incredible Tom Kit Brian Yorkie If Then, which he was reunited with Idina Menzel. So welcome back, Anthony. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
So this is what I love about you.
I mean, Chicago's where, I was born in Chicago and particularly
I'm
always happy to come
You
back.
were. And you have an amazing family, Alyssa and Adam. I mean, you just come from a good lineage. It's incredible. So you pick shows, Anthony, like no other actor I've ever seen, because you pick musicals where people actually have to pay attention, whether it is like a Rent or a Next to Normal or If Then. The audience gets immersed into your projects, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with Michael's direction. But just tell me about the lineage of these projects and how they kind of immerse an audience.
Well, I mean, I just feel like it's really, there's a great opportunity with theater to reflect life back at people. And, sometimes it's fun to see something, just simply entertaining and dazzling and all that kind of stuff. But for me, as a theater goer, I want to feel like I'm being taken on a human journey, and that my soul and heart and mind are all moved and inspired and challenged. And so, yeah, that's what I'm drawn to as a performer. And I've just been very fortunate that, the thing that put me on the map in the biggest way was Rent, which, has become a classic. And that Rent inspired these other writers, especially Tom Kit and Brian Yorkie. They were so, they've told me many times over the years that I've known them how much Rent meant to them and how it made them feel, that their ideas and mission of trying to make musical theater that was doing those things, that it made it feel possible. And the same thing has happened to Lin-Manuel Miranda with what he's doing in Hamilton.
Sure.
So to be a part of that legacy is incredibly meaningful.
As a theater actor, which you're probably most known for, how is the development process of a musical? How has that changed since you first started, back in the early 80s? Because a lot of times now, shows right now, Anthony, because of budgets, aren't allowed to try out like a Next to Normal or an if-then?
Well, the reason that Next Normal If Then have had the chance to develop over time is that they have at their helm David Stone, who, he produced the mega blockbuster hit Wicked, and he's used that leverage now to afford himself the opportunity to support new works. And not everybody has the wherewithal, either the resources or the commitment to it, but he does, and that's a remarkable thing, I think, in this day and age where so many people are so cautious and fearful and not risk taking. For him to have that kind of commitment to new works and to give the opportunity, it takes time. With the musical, there's so many different elements that have to come together. And it takes time, and you can only keep discovering what it is if you have the opportunity to put all those elements together. If you have the sound and the lights and the costumes and the choreography and the music and the orchestrations and the acting and everything all in front of an audience, you can't really know what you have until you have that. But to do that, you need money and time. And thankfully, because of Wicked, David Stone and his team have that available to them. And so we're just really, really, really fortunate for him. And he's, one of the only people doing that right now.
Absolutely.
And he also, he pledges not to do a revival. Not that he's against old work, but that's not what his mission is.
Right. So take us through the journey of If Then. Let's talk about Lucas, your character. And for those that don't know the show, it's about Elizabeth, who is Liz and Beth. And it's really about choices that we make. And honestly, the music is just so insanely gorgeous. For me, it reminds me of Once. And that opening number, just the dance that they do around, is very Once. Just the way it stops and the footing of it is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we were trying to. Well, I wasn't super involved in the choreography. That's not but I know that the effort is to try to make it feel reflective of, human, finding a way to find a gestural language that feels alive, contemporary, and human, and not just like a bunch of dancers dancing, but yet also evocative and theatrical, and I think it's quite beautiful to look at. I'm not a dancer, so I'm not doing that part of it myself. I'm doing the talking and the singing, so more than anything. And the score, Tom Kitt to me writes very, very. They're hooks, with that word hook that you use for like a catchy tune, but it's not. There's nothing typical to me about his hooks. Right. And it's also the kind of music that rewards upon repeated listening. And I've been listening to some of these songs for a few years because we first did our developmental readings of this show, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It's hard for me to remember exactly when the first one was, but they're songs that I've been singing and or listening to for all these years, and I will never grow tired of them because they're musically interesting, they're musically alive, and also the best thing, to me, the best kind of musical theater songwriting is when the music is supportive and in cohesion with the lyric and with the intent of the dramatic moment.
Yes,
I think that both of these men know that. I mean, that's their. That they never do anything without that being forefront.
So, how has your character changed since the inception of Lucas?
I think one of the big changes was that at the beginning, his sort of down and out kind of off the grid life was a little more played for laughs, I guess you could say. And not to say that Lucas still has a fair amount of humor, I think. But I think Michael Greif, our director, encouraged Brian Yorkie, the book writer and lyricist, to just take him a little more seriously, so that he could be a little more of a true equal to Elizabeth.
Right. Wow.
So that's one of the changes. And there was always, I think that the main framing of Lucas's two lives was pretty similar from day one. but it's just gotten more, there's more material written. Some Other Me was a song that came later in the process. For instance, that's a song between Beth and Lucas, that is pretty, it's like thematically one of the central songs of the show to me. The idea of, like, in some other life, I could be some other whole person, and my life could be totally different. And so we both kind of reflect on that in that song, but in sort of very different ways. But always had, like, in the one life, pining after death, and in the other life, having a relationship with David.
And Anthony, how does the performance change with different cast members? Because I can only, like, think from an actor's standpoint, because there's very few shows that are so cast centric, I guess. Because I was talking to Bob Spencer when he was doing Next to Normal, and when the cast started changing and stuff, he said, "My God, it was so hard on him a couple times because he was so emotionally wrapped up with the other actors that when somebody else came on, even if it was an understudy or just a cast change, he had a hard time adapting." Was it like that for you working with Adina and now with Jackie?
Well, it's different. I mean, Adina and I have so much history,
right,
and our two characters have so much history,
right?
So that was just sort of there. It was just it became part of our souls together. But thankfully, Jackie was a part of. She was Adina's standby.
Yeah.
By the way, so I did get to do the show a number of times with her in New York, and so we have our own relationship. And she's a very different actress, and she has a different soul than Adina. And I feel like we've found a really nice way for our two souls to meet. And it is different, but for me, when I have an available, alive, present actor to work with, then I can go with anything that they're giving me as long as it feels like it's in keeping with the story. And if we're, and there's different colors that come out just inevitably.
Sure.
Because I'm not a fixed statue. I'm available to what comes. And then Michael Greif, our director, he's always interested. I mean, of course, he's got his eye on the story to make sure that we're hitting the right points in the most potent way. But he also is always interested in what's real, what's authentically happening between us. So, he's very, very flexible himself.
Fantastic. And how's the tour going?
It's going very well. I mean, I was honestly curious because it's not that well known a piece. I mean, people who are sort of musical theater enthusiasts probably have a little more awareness of it. But, it's not your typical show in any way. And I was hopeful that what would happen with it has seemed like it's happened, which is we kind of caught people by surprise in a nice way. And, it's been, like, refreshing for people to come and see something new and contemporary, and when they've responded to it, they've responded really, really well to it, and it's done the things that we always hoped it would do, which was open their minds and hearts a little bit and move them and inspire them. And
right.
So we've had a lot of like gratitude expressed to us, not just like that was really, but like thank you for coming and doing the show here. That's a pretty cool thing to hear.
Yeah, it's one of those shows, Anthony, and I can only name a few of them. Next to Normal, Rent is another one, and Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, where the show kind of hits you a few days afterwards. And it's like, wow, that my life can be impacted by one thing I say to one person can forever change the course of my life. I mean, the show is so philosophy-wise much bigger than on the stage.
Yeah, and that's what, when I was out of the show in New York, I had knee surgery. I missed 12 weeks, and before I went back in, I saw the show. And I had been inside it all these years, but I hadn't watched it from, an audience perspective. And the thing that struck me the most was this sort of cumulative effect of the ripples that we all create in each other's lives. And it's sort of this undeniable power that we have, not necessarily over one another, but for one another in how we affect each other.
Right.
And I think that's really, it sort of sneaks up on you in a way. It just, I don't know. I think that's very powerful and very meaningful.
It is. And that's the best kind of theater, Anthony, when it's life-changing or affects your life or makes you think about your life.
Yeah.
You know? So I want to talk about Grind. I am obsessed. I don't know why I'm obsessed, because you're one creepy fucker in it. I gotta tell you. My God. But that song you sing at the end, that 5 minute used to be you, while you're doing something not so kind.
Yeah.
I will actually never do poppers again.
Oh, please don't.
But what was the whole genesis of Grind? I know Telly was, part of the process, but my God, it's the new kind of movie making where it's a music video movie wrapped into one.
This walk feels like forever. This walk
All these men are cruising for other gay men in this neighborhood. I live in a bathhouse.
I can never get guys like this.
Well, maybe your profile pictures are ugly?
This is better than meeting someone in, say, like a bar or coffee shop.
Duh, way better.
We used to have to ditch our straight friends to find our own kind, and now we're always at a gay bar.
I mean, I have an app I use to shop for shoes.
Exactly.
Same difference.
But I do it anyway. I do it
If someone left a little slip of paper on a table that said, I'm 78 feet away, I'm looking at you right now and I would like to fuck you. That's creepy. But on an iPhone, it's okay?
Violence between gay men is extremely rare. We kill each other in other ways.
One of the other, the director and one of the writers, Zach, he was traveling abroad doing, I think it was concerts in Europe, and, he was on Grindr, and he started talking to local people. I can't remember if it was Scandinavia or where he was, but they were telling him that there was somebody who was targeting people on Grindr, and people were getting killed. So he thought that was really crazy and creepy.
And Anthony Rapp would be perfect for this role.
Yeah, so they wrote this. They wrote this piece, and I think it's a very, very surprisingly effective and interesting exploration about, the lengths people will go to connect and the sort of pitfalls of that and the dangers of it. And but I enjoy playing. Messed up people, because I feel like we're all human, and so we all have, not that some people are more messed up than others, but I thought that the writing was very compassionate, human, and interesting, and I was proud to be. I'm always like I said, I'm interested in doing,
Of course,
being a part of things that feel like they're trying to say something and explore the human experience in new ways, and the music was very cool, and I just think, and it turned out even better than I hoped. That's the thing about making movies is
it's out of your control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the set doing what I'm doing, but
Right.
you never know then it gets edited and the way it's shot and all those things. You're not really in control of any of that, so sort of cross your fingers. And I'm very proud of how it turned out.
So, one question I've been meaning to ask you ever since the film of Les Mis came out, when you filmed the film version of Rent, and even with something like a Grind, do you wish that you could have sung live while you were filming those movies?
No.
No?
I really don't, no, because if you're doing take after take after take, I mean, when I'm filming, I'm still singing, but you can't get the greatest quality.
I see.
And I guarantee you they're still overdubbing.
I'm sure.
Even
I'm sure that.
I mean, it's I'd rather get the best possible performance of it in the studio, and and then it's because you're not lip syncing is a sort of misnomer, because
That's right.
I'm still singing on the set,
Right.
but there's so many other factors involved that it's not a problem for me to not have it be the quote unquote live performance, because it's very committed and alive inside the studio. I promise you.
Right. And it goes back to what we were saying before. It is ultimately the director's cut that kind of matters too, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not like one solid sung through performance is ever going to be the one that's on the film anyway.
True.
I just don't understand. It feels a little bit like a gimmick to me.
Right.
But
So I just interviewed Randy Harrison, who's in the new Cabaret tour. You and he were also involved in another project that I love, and that was Pop.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, both of us did that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think I saw you did it in Pittsburgh or something.
Yeah, Pittsburgh City Theater, where I've worked a bunch of times. It's sort of
It's
one
a
of my
great
artistic
theater.
homes.
Yeah. What was it being in the mind of Warhol? I mean, come on. There's no bigger no bigger character.
No, I mean it was very, very interesting. I watched a lot of footage of him. I read up on him a lot. Read some of his writings. He was to say he was an interesting person is the understatement.
Right.
That show was the writers took a kind of their effort in a way was to make a piece of theater that was itself pop art. So, and I think they were very successful at that. So it had a lot of humor, but
Yes.
it was also really, really clever, and very powerful. One of the cool things, and Andy's from Pittsburgh originally, and there were extended family members of him who came to see the show, and they talked to me for quite a while afterwards, and they were very, they were touched by it, and they were excited to be there and to see him reflected in a new, interesting way, And so that was very gratifying to meet them and get to talk to them for a while.
Well, and of course, Rent. It's still so iconic, and just getting older. I'm pushing 50 years old now, and it's so funny because when you talk to people about musicals that have changed people's lives, you hit people generationally in the 60s. They'll say, it's either Hair, then it moves up to Superstar in the 70s, and maybe Phantom in the 80s. But by God, if you hit the 90s, across the board, it's Rent. I mean, it's just such an amazing event that it literally, Anthony, changed people's lives and changed the movement.
Yes, that's all true. Yes,
But
and that's amazing to be a part of.
it is, and you will be forever associated with that. And I guess there's worse things in life, huh?
Oh, way worse things.
And you know what? Actually, my little old mind just reminded me that when we talked, you were going to direct a production in overseas, like in China or something.
In South Africa.
Oh my God, that's right. How did that go?
It was fantastic. I mean, in South Africa, they have a musical theater industry that's sort of behind. It took a while to really get it going after apartheid ended, and so they're the young actors that I got to work with over there were so grateful to get to something that was more current.
Right.
It wasn't just the old classics, and it wasn't Disney. It was something that really meant a lot to them, and it was challenging for them to find an audience because the audience in South Africa is still developing. But the people who came loved it, and we got great reviews, and it was very, very meaningful. I mean, South Africa to me is a really, really interesting place for so many reasons, and how far they've come so quickly is kind of amazing.
And you were over there for a while, weren't
There's still a lot
you?
of stuff going on. Yeah, I was over there for 10 weeks or so,
Yeah.
something like that. So I really got to get a feel for things, and I certainly became friends with the cast, and I was when you're one of the great things about my business is when I do travel for work, I'm living there for
Correct.
the time that I'm there.
Right.
So I get to, I'm not a tourist. I'm working with people who live there and getting to experience at least some of the life and the culture that's not just the sort of the everyday life stuff. That's not just like the fancy buildings
Right.
and the museums or whatever.
You immerse yourself as actors do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, I'm going to let you go eat because you need to eat. You got to keep your strength up because it's going to be very cold in
do.
Chicago.
It's very
When you
cold
get
here in
there.
Cleveland right now too. So,
Ah, yes, I'm sure it
but
is.
I'm hardy. I'm a
I
hardy
know.
Westerner.
Yeah,
I can
we're
do it.
hardy stock. Yeah, I'll never forget when I guess because it was. I don't know if you stayed at my place that one time, but you and I had to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were doing some Fox morning show, and you were singing "Seasons of Life" with your guitar, and the morning host brought out his guitar and started playing with you. And I'm like,
funny, yeah.
I was like, wow, you go through a lot, my friend, for the art.
I do.
You do. Well, thank you, Anthony. And If Then opens at the Oriental Theater February 23rd through March 6th. That's a nice, healthy run. Tickets are going quite fast, too, I hear.
Great.
So,
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
absolutely. And I'll be in touch about Florida.
Great. Take care.
Okay, you too, Anthony. Bye.
The curtain is now coming down on another episode of Showbiz Nation Live with Michael Roberts. Make sure to visit showbiznationlive.com and ubnradio.com for information on upcoming shows and to listen to past episodes. Thank you for tuning in, and please support your local theaters and arts organizations. I'm your announcer, David Friend. See you at a show.